Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 7 of Konosuba. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So this is something, isn't it? Kazuma seems to have woken up dead. I'd reckon that this is probably, not what he expected. Although I guess the big question is, what happens next? So, one has to wonder, when you just sort of die from the place you get reincarnated in, what happens then, Do you just go back to the world you came from? We're not addressing that right now, obviously, because, why would we? Just start something shocking and pretend like nothing happened. I mean, I guess, at the very least, he didn't die right at the beginning of the episode. Although that said, there are a whole bunch of issues going on here, and I think it's kind of understandable why he might have ended up dead. I mean, they do have to deal with all sorts of debt and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if there were bounty hunters after them. Although, that's really not the half of it. I mean, if they're sleeping in what is essentially a freezing stable, it would make sense that they freeze to death. Yeah, it's rather unfortunate. Despite saving the city and earning a big reward, they're actually worse off than they were before, in no small part because Aqua knocked down that big portion of the wall. Yeah, this is, definitely a low point. Especially for Aqua. I mean, what's she gonna do if people don't help her pay off her debts, the poor girl? God forbid she get a job or do something. Yeah, I'd imagine winter, as they've established it is, it's not a great time for adventurers. All sorts of critters hibernate for the winter. I'd imagine monsters would be kind of similar. And if you're blundering out in the cold, it's a good way to accrue frostbite and other injuries like that, I feel like venturing out in winter is almost more trouble than it's worth. Although, it's not like Kazuma has much of a choice, really, with all the debt they have. Here we go again. Of course, Darkness wants to hunt wolves, but I don't think the wolves are gonna do to her what she's seemingly hoping they would. Yeah, this is the ongoing problem, isn't it? Everybody wants to pick a quest that is suitable to their own insane desires, but none of the quests they pick are actually a good quest, you know, something they can do and make a profit off of. Now this is interesting. You know, the Destroyer, whatever that is. It's sort of like, I don't know, Howl's Moving Castle, but malevolent or something like that. And the mission is just to scout it, so ostensibly it's not necessarily dangerous. I mean, they're not taking it, but, you know, it's a little foreshadowing, I feel like. So, my senses are telling me that by going for this seemingly innocuous quest, there's going to be all sorts of issues. You know, the idea is it pays a lot of money and it's seemingly simple, but if it pays a bunch of money, there's got to be something to it, you know? At least Kazuma's instincts are sort of on point, you know? By recognizing that darkness is interested in this, that means there's got to be something else that's unsavory, you know? She wouldn't just be in for any old goblin bullying session or anything like that. Now, you know what? I quite like how everybody's got their own sort of winter weather gear. I can't say all of it looks particularly warm or anything, but you know, it's nice that they're sort of playing into things, you know? Even if Aqua still is essentially just wearing a skirt. You know, I do have to wonder if Darkness is actually wearing her armor. Because, on the one hand, like, what good is a Crusader without their armor? But on the other hand, you know, wearing metal armor is probably kind of dangerous in the winter. Like, I don't think if you're wearing plate mail there should be any skin contact with the metal, but you know, that's a good way to suffer frostbite or suffer from the cold in general. I mean, metal's much more thermally conductive than well, most things really. So, you know, if you're wearing a bunch of metal and it's contacting your skin, you know, that's a good way to leach a bunch of heat. So, you know, I can't help but wonder if maybe this is a mistake, giving Megumin sanction to blow things up. You know, I mean, really, more often than not, at this point, it's gotten them into trouble. It almost feels like a waste to use such a powerful spell on these pesky little snow sprites. They almost remind me of, those little critters from Spirited Away, like the little... Or, was that Spirited Away or was that My Neighbor Totoro? Maybe it was both. Like the little soot sprites, I guess they are. I think that's what they were called at any rate. You know, little, just like these little sort of nondescript critters. Yeah, you know, that Megumin was only able to blow up 8 of them. Like, that really does seem like a waste for, like, the one thing she can do per day. So Kazuma's finally realizing, you know, if this is so easy, why doesn't everybody do it? And it seems like we're finally getting our answer. You know. Something's stirring up the snow, and it definitely doesn't look friendly. So that's, not an especially evocative title, The Winter Shogun, who is supposedly this horrible monster. I mean, he certainly looks dangerous. You know, I have to wonder about the wisdom of hunting soot sprites if they're nominally under the protection of this creature. Yeah, you know, I feel like if basically everybody knew this going in, they would probably do well to, tell Kazuma. I do find it interesting that in what is ostensibly like European fantasy, there is a sort of shogun type character here. Well, not shogun type character, but like an Eastern fantasy kind of deal, a samurai. And I guess what's more, this guy's really, really serious. Alright, that's an explanation for sure. You know, the Winter Shogun takes the form of people whose thoughts it reads, but only, like, people reincarnated from Japan are around for it to, I guess, read their thoughts. Yeah, you know, that's kind of a weird contrivance, but I could believe it, I suppose. Yeah, you know, if I were in Kazuma's position, I don't think I'd necessarily be so willing to throw down my weapons and bow down. I mean, this guy's clearly dangerous and all that. And, like, everybody else has kind of been real cagey about this information. I feel like my best bet would be getting back to town. You know, I guess good on Kazuma. He's willing to try and get Darkness to behave when she's more than willing not to and to cause trouble. I guess he's probably only doing it to save his own neck. I mean, can you really blame the man? Although that said, the Winter Shogun was pretty forgiving for a while. You know, he was just politely sort of waiting. I guess his patience only extends so far. Yeah, well, there we have it, I guess. Kazuma is capital D dead. So I guess that begs the question of what happens to him now, you know? Does he reincarnate back in Fantasyland? Does he reincarnate back on Earth? It's interesting that it came back here, you know? It sort of implies that this is like the destination of everybody who dies. It's rather telling here that this goddess, she's, I don't know, less willing to immediately mock him for dying the way he did. Granted, this was a far more understandable death, you know, being decapitated. Wow, that's a real boon, being reincarnated into a wealthy family and all that. I mean, like, he gets a choice in everything, you know. Man. Although I feel like Kazuma's sort of abusing the goodwill. Yeah, you know, something tells me that a lack of gratitude might be his downfall here. I mean, like, this goddess, she's nice enough to sort of play along here, saying, you know, hey, you had a hard life in this fantasy world, so, you know, I'll do you a favor in the next life, but, ooh, you know, maybe, just maybe, he shouldn't talk poorly about Aqua, seeing as how, she and this goddess are likely colleagues, you know? Wouldn't do, you know, you shouldn't, talk poorly about your coworkers behind their back. Yeah, you know, I guess when you really break it down, Kazuma's had a rather rotten experience in this life. But, I feel like his description's going to lead to a but. You know, everything has been hard, but I feel like, compared to his previous shut-in life, there was some degree of meaning. as evidenced by that little tear rolling down his cheek, you know. Despite all the horrors and hardship, there was a little fun here and there. You know, I can certainly relate to that. Like, I've had really crappy jobs, and I think about it fondly to some degree, even though it really sucked at the time. So I guess this is the real question, you know, is Kazuma going to give up the potential good life to return to that little fantasy world? Oh. Oh dear, turns out it's not his choice to make. Oh dear. Yeah, so resurrection magic is interesting, you know. I guess he sort of has the choice to go back. That's interesting too. You know, it seems like Aqua might be sort of bending the rules a little bit by reviving him, but at the same time, she has access to divine magic too, so, what can you do, really? Yeah, I guess it's unfortunate that Cosmo's caught in the middle of all this. Because he wasn't doing anything wrong. Yeah, you know, I think I feel a little bad for Eris. Because she's, I guess nominally Aqua's subordinate, but the way things stand right now, she's kind of in charge. But you know what? I mean, she was being kind and helpful. I don't think she deserves this sort of abuse. Hopefully she is, gracious, because I get the feeling like this could really reflect poorly on Cosmo to have earned the enmity of the god that oversees the world he lives in. I mean, she seems willing to let bygones be bygones, but you never know. I think it was also interesting that when he died, he was wearing that tracksuit, because he certainly wasn't wearing that before. At least not that I could tell, you know. One has to wonder if that's sort of like a default set of clothing for him or what. Yeah, you know, his death wasn't really that big a deal, but it's nice that at least Megaman and Darkness are happy to see him back. You know, obviously Aqua didn't really care one way or the other, knowing she could undo it, but, you know, it's always nice to be missed by people. Of course, maybe Aqua's overstepping her bounds by asking for gratitude. You know, she doesn't quite realize how good things were about to be for him. Now, I don't think it was explicit, but, oh, we might find out now, actually. Like, I just sort of assumed he was decapitated. And I guess now it's confirmed. You know, I guess it's nice that Aqua's magic was able to sort of, repair the discontinuity in his neck, you know? Because there's no evidence of a scar or anything like that. You know, I guess, lucky him. Yeah, you know, I think that's the right call, you know, calling it quits on the quest, because everyone was certainly worse for wear, Cosmo having been beheaded and all. Sure, he's alive and well, but, I mean, you can't call that a near-death experience. I'd call that a death experience, you know. That's not going to be fun no matter who you are. So that's interesting. They managed to save one sprite, but rather than take the reward money, Aqua wants to keep it as a pet. You really can't make this up. I mean, it's almost like Aqua deserves her debt for pulling stuff like this. Something tells me that maybe a little snow sprite like this isn't gonna make it through the winter. I feel like these little critters aren't long-lived. And you know what? Even if they were long-lived, I feel like Aqua would just sort of not adequately take care of it. I suppose it's not surprising that Cosmo's still fixated on his meeting with Eris, because, like she said, she was sort of sorry that he died in the way he did, and, she was kind of nice to him. I would sort of put it under the category of more like appropriate manners for the situation, but that's certainly a lot better than he's received any other time. Including right now, I suppose, seeing as how Aqua wants to drive them all into further debt. Man, Cosmo really drew a short straw here. If he had just been reincarnated, I guess that would be the end of the story, but everything would be smooth sailing for him. Yeah, it never really ends. I feel like there are going to be no good quests from here on out, only whatever horrible things this party wants to go along with. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.